This is the most important thing to know about Joe Biden. Joe Biden is not a bumbling fool. Now let's sink that in, because now you're going through all these examples of like, well, of course he is, Slater. Remember when this, remember when that? Yeah. He's now old and more senile every day, and we've seen all the clips. You've seen all the clips. You get it. And by the way, it's going to get way worse throughout this campaign than any clip you've seen of Joe Biden gaffing. But Biden has benefited the last few decades of his political career in DC with the perception that he's just a gaffe machine, right? And then because that buys into this, oh, he's just like a lovable teddy bear, regular old Joe guy. No, he's not. Joe Biden is shrewd. He knows what he's doing. He's not stepping on rakes all the way to the presidency, right? You don't trip and fall into multi-million-dollar crime enterprises, which is what we're going to highlight today. He's a lot like Nancy Pelosi in that. You look at Nancy Pelosi on camera and she's like a disaster. You're like, how could this woman function at all in life, let alone be Speaker of the House for so long and be so effective at it? Well, it's behind the scenes, right? They're good at what they do, even if what they do is bad. So I really agree with Alex Marlow. He's the editor-in-chief of Breitbart.com. He has a book called Breaking Biden. Here. Oh, there we go. Oh, I just jumped out of scene to show that I got the book right here, right within reach. There, look at that. There it is right there. We need to stop thinking of Joe Biden as Sleepy Joe, as this guy who's just doddering in his basement. Joe Biden is a shrewd, lying, ambitious man who for nearly his entire life has had the single goal of becoming president of the United States. Now, I know a lot of people are like, oh, Slater, that's a lot of ad hominems. We're gonna highlight today lies. Shrewd's not like an insult. I don't really mean that like deceptive, I guess is kind of an insult, but like that's true. And he's ambitious, which could be good or bad. But he's not Uncle Joe. He doesn't stumble. You don't stumble in the White House. You have to work at it. So we got to reset the narrative of Joe Biden. You can't just say he's old and senile. He's worse than that. He knows exactly what he's doing. And he and his whole family have gotten rich off of it in the process. Thrilled to talk on the show with Emma Jo Morris. She's the one who broke the Hunter Biden laptop story when she was at the New York Post. She's amazing. She gets this. She understands the why better than anyone, why this matters. We're going to talk with Peter Schweitzer, who knows more about the what than anybody else. From the Government Accountability Institute, like he broke all of this Hunter Biden stuff. And then we'll talk with Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, who in DC has been there from the very beginning. Peter Schweitzer, by the way, says the Bidens have run a very sophisticated crime enterprise. And this is done not despite his mumbling and stumbling. Forget about that stuff. Focus on what he's done to get into the White House and what he's done since he's been there. And Joe Biden has been bad for this country. And the word we're going to talk about a lot on this show is compromised. By the way, Joe Biden's been in DC. This is my favorite Joe Biden fact. He's been in Washington, D.C. for 51 years. How can that possibly be true? So we've been a country for 236 years. So Joe Biden has been in Washington, D.C. for 22% of the entire existence of the United States. If you take the entire existence of America, since the ratifying of the Constitution, Joe Biden's been there 1/5 of the entire time. That's amazing. So I said he's a liar. That's not just me saying that. I know people are like, oh, sir, it's so mean. I don't know. What do you want to say? And this is nothing new. Let's go back 33 years. When Clarence Thomas was being confirmed by the Senate to be Supreme Court Justice, Joe Biden led the confirmation hearings. There he is. Oh, look at that. That's a very serious face. Before the hearings, Senator Biden told Clarence Thomas to his face that the hearings, listen, they're not going to be an ordeal. Going to give you a couple, you're going to be nervous naturally, so I'm going to give you a couple softballs at first, help you relax, because I want you to be able to do your best. That's what he said. And he assured Clarence Thomas that there's no tricks up my sleeve. And Clarence said, instead of that softball he promised to ask, he threw a beanball straight at my head. Clarence Thomas said that while he was at Yale Law School, which was just a couple of years after Joe Biden plagiarized his way through Syracuse Law School, Clarence Thomas would listen to this song called Smiling Faces by the Undisputed Truth. And the opening line to the song is, smiling faces sometimes pretend to be your friend. Smiling faces show no traces of the evil that lurks within. And Clarence Thomas said he met one of those people in the Senator Joe Biden, who lied throughout that entire fiasco. And he knew it. Joe knew it, of course. He didn't care. The one thing I want us to know about Joe Biden, so that's like the first big picture point, is he knows what he's doing. He's not a bumbling guy, old man in his basement, even though he's getting more senile every day. But the big thing I want to know about Joe Biden in big picture is his ambition. So here's the background. Joe's uncle, so his dad's brother, got rich selling sealants for coffins. So that sounds ridiculous. It's true. Joe's dad got in business with his uncle, and they did great. They got some military contract too. And they got a big house, and they hung out on a yacht, and they lived a really good life financially. Then his uncle and dad, they lost it all. And Joe's family moved into his mom's parents' house in Scranton. But the good life lasted long enough for Joe to have tasted it. And the rest of his life was defined by trying to get that good life back and to enter in it and to be accepted by those people. When they moved to Delaware, they lived across the street from a private school called Archmere Academy, a prestigious private school. And Joe would look at it every day. There it is. And he called it his Oz. Right? It was that place that was just out of reach that he needed to go to so he could be in that upper echelon of society. And Joe, of course, he was never book smart, but he was able to build up his charisma. And because of his stuttering, he was able to really work on that the best he could. And he was good enough at football to get in. And his goal was solely to climb the social ladder. He wanted to be a Kennedy. Fast forward, after college, he knew politics was his way to project that image and to elevate his family like the Kennedys. Ben Kramer wrote a book called What It Takes. And he said, the first thing you've got to know about Joe is the house. The house. He said probably the first thing he'd show you anyway. Joe, right when he became senator, bought a 10,000 square foot compound. Look at that thing. That's what he bought in 1974. And the point of this was his way to enter into the elites of society, which was his driving mission in life. And this was his Nantucket. This is Kennedy's Nantucket compound, right? For the family, which we'll get to later as well. So he had a salary. His salary was $42,000. What? I know it's 1974, so that house wasn't worth a ton compared to now, but $42,000? Well, he ended up selling it for 6 times what he paid for it. He sold it to an executive at a bank, MBNA, a Delaware bank, one of the major supporters of his campaign. Sold it for much more than what it was actually worth. I'm sure that was all on the up and up as well. That just ties into his ambition, right? Joe did not stumble his way into the White House. He calculated his way there. He did and has done whatever it took to get there. That's why he's not going to give it up easily. Joe has an ideology, and it's so far been a force for bad while he's been able to execute it. Like him there or not, maybe you think he's fine. Just don't sell him short. That's my big point. Don't sell him short as some sort of fool who got there by accident. He knows exactly what he's doing.